Hello, everyone. This is the Secure and Govern 15.5 pre-planning meeting before the start of the next milestone. Something like that anyway. So let us begin by looking at the issue. No real announcements to go over aside from the fact that we are now secure and govern. That change has gone into effect. I'm going to talk with Sam Kerr to find out where he's at with moving compliance into these planning sessions and things like that. Because now that they're part of Govern, I believe, we'll want to do that. So there's that. Let's start by looking at everyone's capacity. How's everyone feeling?
Good.
Yeah, pretty good. I think I realized I didn't update my group capacity number, but the total capacity.
Okay. You can update it whenever you want, provided that the numbers add up to things you've committed to. If you're still talking, you're muted again.
Muted myself, yeah. I was just saying I'll do the math now as we talk here. Get
Okay.
that updated.
Cool. Also, I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but when you edit, there are commented out comments that explain each section and what goes into them. So if you're ever wondering group capacity, flex capacity, what do they mean? I always explain them, but it's also written in here. So just to let you know. All right. Out of office. Okay. And of course, keep in mind that this needs to be, you should take this into account when you're adding your capacity and prioritizing work and whatnot. Sus-wise, I think we're actually pretty good to the point where Neil's been, oh, it just links to itself, didn't it? Neil's been starting to focus on S3s and S4s. So I don't think we have anything to worry about there from an S1, S2 perspective. So let's start with composition analysis. This is basically on hold, right, while things get reorganized. Is that correct, Andy?
Yes, that should be that way.
Should be empty and sad and lonely. Container security. I know that Camelia is working on the vision designs. I really like the way that she did her walkthrough and posed the questions and broke it up into sections. I pinged you all yesterday on that. So it was a cool idea. So maybe something to reference once you start digging into that form of design in themes. But I believe she's on track. Michael, dynamic analysis.
Yeah, so for dynamic analysis, this milestone, it's largely just a continuation of what I was working on last milestone, namely looking at security profiles and the proposal for that and just trying to move that effort forward.
Okay. How is the thematic design going?
That theme is kind of created before we were talking about thematic design visions, and it's kind of a larger theme. So I guess the vision for profiles is hashed out, and then the vision for the other stuff in that theme was hashed out separately. So it's not just a full encompassing theme for this specific or vision for this specific theme, but it should encompass most of the issues by now, the two different like visions.
So you're not necessarily designing the entire theme because of the timing of when these were picked up, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I started on this prior to the whole vision concept or before it was set in stone.
Okay. And then these are the subcomponents of what you're working on within the theme.
Correct.
So when you say 5, is this 5 referring to this 5?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the way that we're doing these things now to make sure that we're symbiotic, I guess. All right. And you've got 2 nice to haves for a total of 8 more. And then looking at static analysis.
Yep. And so that's largely a continuation of last time too. So mostly looking at profiles, which isn't technically an static analysis theme yet. Still need to revisit that. But then other than that, I'm still trying to make a little bit more progress if I have the time to make progress on like inline findings.
Okay, so that's why this is nice to have. Okay,
Correct.
so let's see. You're basically at 5.
I also incorporated the OKR work since it's group work,
Yes.
but
Good
also
point.
not group work. It's kind of a fuzzy
Nope,
zone, but it
nope,
feels
nope.
more like group work.
That's great.
Yeah, I think if we put it on the issue, then it should fall into group work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. Okay, there's your 5
Cool.
+ 6 to be 11.
Yep.
Awesome. I can do math. I really can't do math. That was really hard for me. All right, threat insights.
Yep. So still working in this UX theme. One of the items from that. Oh, I just realized that I have that milestone and not estimated milestone weight. So I can change that, but the first priority is one of the issues within that theme. So should the weight, estimated weight, be what we're working on in this milestone, or how much weight is left in that theme?
It should be what you're
Towards the
planning on working
milestone.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why have the weight there at all if because if you're just working on the theme as a whole and you're not pulling out a separate issue?
Yeah,
I guess
this is the current set of tables is built around how we want to work when we get there thematically. So when you first pick up a theme, for instance, you're going to design the entire theme vision.
Right.
That's when you would have something here, but nothing here.
Right. Okay. I see.
Once you've done that and you start to break it down to say, okay, here's how we're going to work on those items from the vision, but to deliver them to be built, then that would go here.
Okay. That's right.
So I would think that in that case, these numbers would probably do what Michael did. They'd match up.
Yeah. Okay. I'll change that. So yeah, we're going to be doing solution validation on filtering in 15.5. So that's going to take up most of my time. I've already started building out the research plan and script, and I need to get it reviewed by Matt and Michael Oliver and do some I'm gonna do 1 or 2 pilots with like security engineers at GitLab, and then we'll be reaching out to current ultimate customers, users of Govern threat insights features for more participants. So that's going to take up most of my time. And then I have one non-theme.
Is this really nice to have, or are you going to try and force to get to it?
I mean, it's not really a need. It's not like, there's a team ready to build it. So that's why it's nice to have. And it's also unrelated to the theme. So the current theme, that's why I put it as nice to have. But this has been in my back pocket as a nice to have for a couple of milestones now. So it'd
Okay.
be really nice to devote some time to it. It's not brand new, like there's already been ongoing conversations on it. So I just need to get back to it. So it doesn't drag on for too long. So I'm gonna try to make a point to get it delivered, get the
Alright.
design stuff anyway.
Cool. A note about this column. We added this in order to be another level of trying to determine prioritization across groups. So really, we only need to know this if there is a plan for engineering to build it at the end of 15.5, for instance, like you put 15.5. So if that's the plan, then that's what we need. But if there's no real reason, we're well ahead of engineering. It's not planned for them anytime soon. We just want to get it done for us. We don't need to put this. We should probably put something like open or I don't know, greater than 15.5, something to that effect. But the intention of this column was to help us use this column plus this column plus this column to determine what is the actual priority of that particular line item. So then we can measure it against everyone else's priorities to see if someone else needs help.
I see. Okay, I'll just remove it.
That's like a PM input almost.
Yeah. I mean, these are things that
We
you
get
talk
that
over
from
with your
them.
PM.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're like, I told engineering that they're going to build this in 15.6, that means we need to finish it in 15.5, right? That's the driver. So that would mean if that was true, then this would have to be 100%. Have to be a need, right? That kind of thing.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
All right. So speaking of that, does anyone have any pressures from your PMs to get anything done that is a need, but you're not sure you're going to be able to get to it? Ultimately, that's really the point of this call, to make sure, of course, that you've got your plan in place, but then is everyone being taken care of? We're probably fine because SCA is sort of on hold, and then we're pretty much ahead in a lot of different areas. So I think we're fine, but I just want to make sure we're asking the question. All right.
I'm good.
Then I suppose the next thing that we could talk about is what we just saw on the UX showcase with David. Does anyone have any thoughts? I thought Matei's question was interesting. I was talking to Michael about this before this call, where he asked, when are we going to be at the same level or on par with product? Did anyone have the same feelings that he had? Or do you feel contradictory to that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I feel contrary. I don't think I've ever had that feeling
That's what I mean by
Working.
contradictory, right?
with any of the PMs I've worked with here.
Meaning that you've always felt empowered to discuss strategy and push UX if you needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
Yep.
Like,
I've never really felt like my PM is like pushing me or our roadmap like in a direction that I don't agree with. I guess Matt in a lot of ways has a lot more insight into what customers are requesting than I do, which feels like, I don't know, maybe I should be more informed, but he's just on more customer calls. I mean, Tam's reach out to him directly. He hears about it more directly. So, I mean, I rely on him to kind of represent, what people are asking for. And, but I mean, when when I point out, any usability concerns, or, I'm very empowered to disagree with any direction or provide a different perspective. But it's very collaborative. I mean, if anything, I I wish I was more involved with those customer asks, but how do you do that without being on a ton of customer calls?
Yeah.
That would take away from time, designing and doing other stuff.
And I think what you're saying is you're voicing the truth that the PM's job is their job, your job is your job, right? And you both come together to meld what you both know about the entire picture.
Right.
And as long as you're both empowered to discuss those things to make sure everyone's on the same page, you can come to a decision together that makes the most sense for your group. That's what is most important. You shouldn't have to be on all their calls, and they shouldn't have to be on all yours, because you're working collaboratively.
Right.
Yeah. So don't feel like you're doing anything wrong, right? I think that's totally acceptable to let people do their work, trust them to do it and to know it and that sort of thing. We're all hired for a reason, because you have the skills that are necessary for your job. What's important is that you feel empowered to have that collaborative discussion with your counterparts.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the balance, right?
Yeah.
Like they can't do what you do. You can't do what they do, because we just wouldn't have enough time for the day. And customers don't know what they want all the time. They know what they want to achieve. So the balance could be getting Matt or any of our PMs to pull out the problems. Like, okay, you want this feature, why? Not, yes, we will plan it. Because that just gets us into feature cycling, which is what we're not going to be doing anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point. The most important aspect. So if they do come back with, we need to get this feature done, we have to dig into that to try and understand why the customer was asking for that, so we can really get to the heart of what the problem was, and therefore what the solution is going to be. And that's a great point. And that's where I think that our counterparts would expect that from us, because that's our expertise.
Yep. Yeah.
So
The dismissal policies you were working on, originally the feature request was like a 2-step approval process in the MR, additional to the current approvals process, because they want to approve dismiss vulnerabilities. Like, no, you just don't want people to dismiss them. You don't want to go manage dismissals. You just don't want them to dismiss it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that this change from where the UX department lives is pretty awesome. I think it's the right move for GitLab as a company. And I think that our leadership is trying to empower us as much as possible to realize that usability is a top tier important thing. The problem to keep in mind, though, with paradigm shifts like this is it's very easy to fall back on old habits. So that's where I'm going to be asking you all to fight that and be vigilant, be aware of it and cognizant that could very easily happen, and to continue to push for UX. And when I say UX, I mean, I don't just mean the usability stuff, right? I think Adam brought this up. Learnability is usability as well. Tech writing is usability. All of these components come into play. So your tech writers, there's not enough of them. Our researchers, there's not enough of them. There's not enough of designers either, but you're more on the front lines than they are. So you'll have to pull them in to make sure that they're being heard. You'll have to push for usability things if you think that it's more important than something else that your counterparts are pushing. Like, we have to just be aware of this in order to drive the change so it sticks. So I think that's the most important thing I could say to you all. So, all right.
Yeah,
Any other thoughts on
absolutely.
that? Any other thoughts on 15.5?
I appreciate what Austin brought up about the underlying code base is a barrier to improving the UX. I mean, I see this all the time. Like in the auto dismiss policy, the security engineers chimed in saying, you know, regarding should this apply to new versus existing vulnerabilities? You know, the security engineer said, well, it'd be great if we could see a preview of what the existing ones are before we just auto dismiss them. And it's like, well, we can't do that. So, you know, we're being told to push for usability, but you know, it becomes a gray area of, well, how long do we want to delay this thing to get the code in a place where it can do this, and us having to decide, you know, can we release an MVC without this thing, or is it really crucial? I think it can be hard to determine that sometimes if it's worth that delay.
Yeah, I think this is where it helps to have a holistic vision. So you know that that's where you want to be in the end. That's the better place to be, right?
Yeah.
After that, it does become a discussion, a hard discussion that you have to have with your team to
Yeah.
figure out if it's worth to delay it and what is that delay? How long is that going to take?
Yeah.
And you have to balance all those things, and maybe there's a way to MVC it. Remember, I'm going to try and submit an MR today to change the V from viable to valuable.
Do it.
Because
I
I
heard
think,
about that. Yes.
Yeah, because I think that is the more important thing to think of. It still needs to be viable, but I think we're thinking viable first and valuable second. I think it needs to be the opposite. As long as you can deliver something that's still going to be valuable to them now, then that's the right MVC. If you find out that it's not, then you have to figure out the balance between time to deliver the thing you want versus delivering something else. And then if it's still bad, is there another way to do it that still gets them to that point? With yours, there might not be. So that's going to be a tough decision. But these are talks we need to have because it should start with usability.
Think of it as trade-offs, right? Like today you can't do X, but the user is asking for something that's way off, like into Z land. Let's get them to Y while considering Z coming up. So we know that, like, okay, well, they want a preview. Well, they can't even do this thing yet. So let's relax on the preview and let's do, can they do the action? Can they do it efficiently? And then you build and build upon that. So you don't have to say no to something because you can't do it today. You just have to keep that in mind when you're planning it out and thinking about it. You're like, yes, we want to go there. That's not today. That's lovable. Like, we're nowhere near that. But we don't want to dismiss it. Right. But we also don't want to wait and hold the release back because we can't do something that, I mean, that's like climbing a mountain, right? So it's all about the balance of value delivered versus the potential value that will be delivered.
Yeah. It's just hard because it could cause a lot more issues. You know, if there's not a preview, they set this thing and it's auto dismissing true positives, you know, that could be really detrimental.
Sure.
So I don't want to solve one problem and create another one, a potentially bigger one. So that's where, yeah, we have to just talk about
If that's that might be different than the use case of being able to retroactively adjust everything. That sounds more like a engine problem. Like in that regard, yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's a way around that until they fix the engine, so they're clearly not converting false or real positives. to
Well,
be
Matt
false.
and I just decided to go forward with proposing the ideal of showing a preview. We've gotten some insight as to the difficulty involved with that, but until they really start with planning breakdown, we won't know for sure how much development weight it'll require.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go forward with the ideal proposal. And then once the developers really start digging into it, then we can discuss, okay, how much would this delay and how much of this is a need to have versus nice to have.
Yeah,
Is there
that
another way
makes
they
sense.
can see dismissals in the meantime that were auto dismissed? Can they go and look at those? Can they?
Yeah,
solve
I
that
thought maybe a
problem?
workaround could be going to the vulnerability report and adding a filter if we have advanced filtering first, but it's the same kind of searching mechanism, it turns out. So I guess a workaround could be they apply the policy and then go to the vulnerability report and filter by things that were auto dismissed. So
There's always going to be tuning.
Yeah.
Whenever we
Yeah.
set anything up,
Yeah.
any system up, we always have to go, crap, that
Right.
didn't work.
yeah.
I think the important takeaway is that you've got a vision. Engineering knows where you're trying to go. So it's possible that while they're doing the MVC, they could also in parallel be figuring out the architecture that's needed to get to the endpoint too. So it's not
Right.
just, well, I'm only going to work on this thing in this MVC and then we'll figure out the other stuff when we get there. It's definitely possible that they could be doing two things at once.
Sure.
The other thing to keep in mind is to be usable, a lot of time, most of the time, it means engineering is going to be the heavy lifting. To make UIs simple, code has to be very complex. That's just a trade-off.
Right.
So
And the trade-off could be you can go use a competitor. So
yeah,
you
exactly.
can always use that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very true.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think that these are good conversations to have. By working in themes, you have the tools to have the conversations, and everyone has the data so they can make better decisions.
Yeah.
And you're all
This-
empowered to make those decisions and have those discussions.
Yeah, this is the part of the movie where we're doing like the training montage. Like that's
Right.
how we should feel.
Even Rocky has
Yeah.
a montage. Right?
Rocky, Mighty Ducks, all the same, practically the same movie.
All right. Any final thoughts? We're a minute over.
I think one of our milestones should be renamed a Smilestone.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to
What
drop.
goes into a milestone? I'm very curious to know.
I have an appointment. I'm leaving.
All right. Thanks, y'all. See ya.